started, I wasn't there at the beginning. It started in 2010 when we got into the Premier League. There's like, I think the idea was to create a little bit of a journal of what went on that season. And it sort of developed from there. We've sort of got quite a bit of a team together now, and put various shows on each week, some which go out to the public and some which we have a Patreon group as well, and some just go out to them. So yeah, I'm one of the stalwarts of the post-match show. So that's my my normal slot in the team. So yeah, enjoy it.
All right, cool. So while we're on the subject of the podcast, where can we find it if we want to find it?
If you want to find it, and we will be doing a post-match show on the game, we'll be at Seasiders Podcast, and it's on YouTube. So we do very similar to this. We do a StreamYard-based format, normally on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock, but it, as I said to you in before the show started, it can vary sometimes. It can go into Monday night, but you can always pick it up on YouTube. And it's also on, the usual sort of Spotify and different, all those different platforms, Facebook and things like that. But just put Seasiders Podcast in, and it generally comes straight up.
All right. So briefly, what is your thoughts on Blackpool's start to the season?
I started off quite, because we did a pre-season, as you do with, I'm sure you've done something similar, pre-season forecast as to where you think you'd finish. I was the most, which is unusual for me, I was the most optimistic of all the podcast team, and I predicted us finishing 10th. So actually where we are at the moment, I was a bit worried a few weeks ago, which I'll come back to, but where we are at the moment perhaps isn't too much of a surprise for me. We obviously, as you know, as your listeners and viewers will know, we came up last season. We had an awful start last year. We were like second bottom after 9 or 10 games. Critchley, who's come in, he was the Liverpool under-23 manager. He came in just before the pandemic, and he had a bit of a baptism of fire really last year, and it took a bit of time to bed in and get used to actually running a League One team rather than an under-23 team, because it's fundamentally different. We got mugged, putting it bluntly, we got mugged off in quite a few games in the early part of last season by teams who just, adopted very, very Neanderthal tactics, where they just basically just put big men against us, and we struggled. But once we settled down and once we got our spine right, we improved, and actually from about game 10 onwards, we were the best team in the division for the rest of the year. So if we'd started 10 games in, we would have been champions. And it didn't, and it was quite good because we stayed under the radar for ages. And then we came in on the blind side, got to play a final, went to Wembley, beat Lincoln, and here we are in the Championship. So what you tend to find when you obviously become the Championship, it's just a different game, And I think I know you didn't have a great start to the season, but our start to the season was all over the place, a bit erratic, and I think it's just because we're just getting used to the level. And I think as by game 5, I think we were starting to find our feet. And I think if you guys look at our results over the last 5 games, they're quite impressive. We've beaten Fulham. We then had a bit of a nightmare game against Huddersfield, where we lost 3-0 at home. But to be honest, we just had a 15-minute dodgy spell, really. Other than that, we actually played all right in that game. And then we've beaten Middlesbrough away, we've beaten Blackburn at home, and we should have beaten Hull away as well. So we were, I should say, because there's some probably good news for you guys, which I'll come to. But we were on a pretty much of a rich vein of form going into the international break.
Now, this good news you talk about, would this be the fact that Maxwell and Lavery are both out?
Yeah, well, basically. I mean, Maxwell has been ever present last season and this season. I think he might have missed one game or something through a little injury, but he picked up a little bit of a knock, and if I remember rightly, it was in the Barnsley game. And I think some of us thought he should come off at that time, and he didn't. And I actually missed the last game against Blackburn because stupidly I mixed up my weeks to go away and have a couple of days away, and I thought it was the international break, and it wasn't. So I ended up missing Blackburn when I should have been away just last weekend. So I missed the Blackburn game, but he played, and he aggravated that injury that he got against Barnsley. And then rather than come off, he stayed on and then took a goal kick. And I didn't see it, but he then basically got taken off, and he's now out for, we believe, 6 weeks. So to be honest, I can't believe he's not in the Wales squad, because he's been so good and so consistent over the last 2 years, and players are playing in the Wales squad who aren't even getting a game for the side. So that is a massive. I can't overestimate, from our perspective, that's a massive loss for us. He's not just our keeper; he's the captain as well. And the way we play, he effectively acts as a sweeper for the defence. And he's very, very consistent. He's a good shot stopper, and he's going to be a huge, huge miss. And then, as you've mentioned, Lavery, who's come in this season on the blind side, we signed him from Linfield for, I don't even know whether we paid a fee, but if it was pretty modest. And obviously, he's come in and sort of, we thought this season we were going to be starting with Jerry Yates up front all the time, and he's pretty much displaced Jerry. Almost certainly, I think if it came to a straight pick, Critchley would go with him, and he's injured as well. There's also some possibility, and he had a bit of a shaky start, but he's got a great partnership with the other centre back, Pateta now. But there's some possibility that Andy Keogh's out as well. So that's like the spine. I believe that Kenny Dougal won't play because he was playing for Australia, or most certainly was away with the Australian team. So we've got like the spine of our side missing on Saturday. And that's got to be, I would suggest, good news for you.
So your captain's out, and I know a bit about Blackpool because I watched a lot of Lee Charles TV's videos throughout last season. So then the next obvious captain probably in the squad this season would have been Richard Keogh, because he was captain at Derby. He's potentially out. So then your next option would probably be Kenny Dougal. He's probably going to be out.
Yeah. There are some positives from our perspective. I think we'll have Kevin Stewart back on Saturday, and he's missed quite a few games recently. And to be honest, we have missed him. So he is, when he plays, he's a very, very, our problem is he doesn't play enough because he keeps getting injured. But I believe he's fit, and I suspect that'll be straight swap for Dougal. So there is also a chance that Keogh's going to play. I think that his injuries are just a niggle. So I'd say he's 50-50 as to whether he starts. And we have got some other good centre backs, but one of them, Gretarsson, who played for Iceland on whenever it was over the weekend, he got stretchered off after 30 minutes, so he's out. So it's our team's going to look probably a little bit different than it did against the starting lineup against Blackburn, I think.
If you give Richard Keogh the choice of whether he wants to play against Forest, even if it's a 50-50 chance, he'd probably sway it as a 60-40 of playing.
Yeah, maybe. And he has, I mean, to be honest, I've got to say, when he first came in, we were all a bit sceptical because he looked a bit slow and he looked a bit exposed. But at the time, he wasn't playing with Marvin Pateta, who's since nailed down a spot. And Marvin, we all like Marvin, and he joined us last season. And once he settled down, he proved to be a really good player. But actually, between the two of them, they work really, really well because Pateta's really fast and Keogh's not. But Pateta does the covering, and Keogh's actually quite good on the ball, and so he's almost like pushing into midfield a little bit, and it actually as a two, even though if we talked about it 2 months ago, we're not all of us would have said, nah, that won't work. It actually works really, really well, and they've basically forged quite a formidable partnership between the two of them. So I think there is a good chance he'll play, but it's one of those that it's whether Critchley wants to risk him or whether he'll consider bringing one of the other guys who really haven't had much of a chance. We bought Connolly from I can't remember where we got Connolly from now, but he was on loan at Fleetwood last season, and he was Fleetwood's. He was Fleetwood's captain. Yeah, I think you're right there, and he's not really had a chance. When he has had a chance, it's been at right back rather than at centre back. So there's we have got options to bring in that could work. So and we've also got the option of bringing Husband in at centre back. He played quite a bit in the back in the centre last season rather than at left back where he's traditionally played for us. So we have got cover. It's not like we're going to be bringing in kids who haven't had any games or anything like that. We've got experienced pros who can come in and fill a slot.
So, what have you made of Forest start to the season?
I was quite surprised at the start because you were pretty much rock bottom, weren't you, for like the first 5 or 6 games? And I'm not sure I would have necessarily tipped you for promotion, but I think because we did the whole division, I think I had you down for about 7th or 8th, or sort of on the cusp of the playoffs. So when I saw you start, I thought, oh my God, particularly combined with our start, I thought, my prediction skills are going around because I won last year. Don't tell John Aspinall on our podcast because he doesn't like me to mention it, but I did win our prediction last year for the whole of the division, and he's never officially acknowledged it. But I thought I was all over the place. I thought Forest would do well. I thought we'd do quite well. And to be fair, I think we both seem to have started improving at the same time. I've sort of had a quick look at your results, and it's quite impressive over the last few games. To be fair, isn't it? You've had some decent results against Barnsley. We beat them as well. You've had a good result against Birmingham, and also you beat Huddersfield, who beat us. So it's going to be a difficult one to call, I think, on Saturday.
I'll tell you the key change that's happened. We've actually got more mentality of going forward post Houghton. We thought we could win games by not scoring goals under Houghton, and it was very much conserve what you had, and if you didn't even have any points, just try not to concede any more goals.
Yeah.
And since he's gone, it's more, we will respect the opposition, but we have to try and dominate games and be going forward and having chances and scoring goals. And 1, it's a hell of a lot more interesting. And 2, you just never know what's going to happen now.
Which is better, which is good to watch, isn't it? That's what you want as a football fan. You don't want predictable, boring defensive football, do you? You want somebody who's going to have a bit of a go, and so yeah. It could be an interesting game. Jerry Yates is going to be coming back in for us to replace Lavery, I would suspect, and he's got a point to prove. He was our number 1 striker last year, and he's had his nose pushed out of joint a little bit. He's probably going to play up front with Medine. Gary Medine is very experienced. Has he ever been? Was he at you at some point, or one point?
No, Gary. The reason that I rolled is because we struggle against big strikers.
Yeah.
We played Cardiff with Kiefer Moore. There was the lad at Borough. Then Matt Smith at Millwall. And Jukovic and Hogan for Birmingham last week. And honestly, the 3-0 doesn't quite tell the story, because for the first 9 minutes we were dreadful, and then we just got the ball on halfway and grab and broke and smashed it.
Of course, your guys will know Jordan Gabriel has joined us this year. Obviously, there's a bit of a long, drawn-out saga over that, although he seems to have lost his place because we've got a lad in from Chelsea, and he's so good that obviously we're not going to keep him, but he's keeping Jordan out of the side at the moment. So we're not sure who play right back. It will be one of the two, and then we've got Garbutt on the left, who's quite well known in the Championship. Been at Ipswich and a few other clubs, Everton. Famously, Angelotti didn't know who he was when he was asked about him when he was leaving, so it was quite amusing. And then we've got the interesting one who's quite good to watch, but a bit maverick. You never know what he's going to do. Is Bowler who was signed from Everton on the left, on the right hand side, who is fantastic when he's on his game. He's brilliant to watch, and not brilliant to watch if you're the opposition, but he's fantastic footballer. And yeah, he's been a bit hit and miss the last couple of games, but when he plays well, he's unstoppable. So we won't be coming to defend. That's one thing I can say, because we can't. So no, we can, but we don't. That's not the way we play. We never have done under Critchley, and I don't see us starting to do it now.
Well, I'm hoping we don't come out to try and defend either, so there could be goals.
Could be, yeah. Of course, I don't know how old you are, but and just to wind you lot up a bit, I was there in 2010 when we had the 4-3 win that took us to the playoff final, and that was just like the most incredible game from both sides. I mean, I've got to say the atmosphere that your fans created that night at the beginning was, I've never heard anything like. You were ready for me, were you? It was the most incredible atmosphere from the Forest fans. I've just never heard anything like it in my life. I was stood next to my brother in the away end, and I think to do a tit for tat, you only gave us 2,000 tickets, so there was only a few of us there, and there was like big gaps around us, so like there could have been more. But the noise was. I was stood next to him, and I could not hear what he was saying to me, and he couldn't hear me, and we stood next to each other pre-match as you're singing. I should remember what your theme, your pre-match. Yeah, go. It really was. Got to say, hats off to you. It was incredible, and it was like ping pong with the way the scoring was going, and you were just a bit unfortunate, I think, on the night, because Blackpool played 30 minutes of the best football that I think they've ever played, and that turned the game at the end of the day. I don't think I've never seen Blackpool play like that. It was like watching Barcelona for about 30 minutes. It really was. It was incredible, and it's a very, very special memory for me being there that night. And the Forest fans were very magnanimous in defeat as well. A lot of them came up and congratulated us on getting there, because I think, to be fair, I think you thought you were going there. I think you thought it was job done, and we just turned in an incredible 30 minutes of football that just turned the game on its head, particularly by that man who you put the picture up from before, DJ Campbell. So I think there'll be goals. I don't know if they'll be quite 4-3, but I think we'll definitely see some goals.
The trouble that we had in that game was actually the game before, when we went to Bloomfield Road, and we didn't play Robert Earnshaw.
Right. To be honest, I'd forgotten you hadn't played Robert Earnshaw, actually thinking about it, but I remember now, yeah.
The fact that we didn't play Earnshaw in the first leg of a playoff, I always thought was a bit kind of like you're setting yourself up to fail. We took the lead from Chris Cohen with that kind of wonder strike, and then threw it away. I think Keith Southern scored the first goal, and I think Charlie Adams scored the
Charlie
penalty.
Adams got the second, yeah.
And when you're going into the playoffs 2-1 down, then he selects Earnshaw, and Earnshaw scores in the first 5 minutes. I mean, I still didn't think we'd win, because you still got to score more than the opposition's going to score, and hope that's enough.
I think part of your problem that game was actually Billy Davies himself. He was such an arrogant little Scotsman, I'll be polite. And he was telling our players as he was coming off the pitch, job done. We're going to Wembley. Don't bother turning up next week. And to be honest, we were guilty of that once in the 90s when we played Bradford and we'd won 2-0 away, and we literally printed the directions to Wembley in the programme, which is like, really? And then go and lose 3-0 at home and don't get there. So, which is probably, we're all still scarred from that game. And I think that's just a salutary lesson in don't rub the noses in the opposition. You're almost like giving the away manager in the second leg their own team talk, aren't you? Holloway didn't need to say anything. All he needed to say is, listen to Billy Davies. He thinks they're there. Go out and prove that they're not. And it's the easiest team talk in the world. And he was It was. I don't think he did you any favours. I don't think he did your players any favours. I don't think he did the club any favours, the fans any favours with his arrogance. And obviously, as we know, it came unstuck. So yeah, I think sometimes less said the better in scenarios like that. You're only at half time at the end of the day, aren't you? And like you say, if you go, I can understand why he might have thought we'll go out defensive in the first game, and he's thinking like, well, we only need to score. We're one behind. We're at home. We've got 30,000 there. We've got the momentum. We'll get an early goal, which he did, and then we'll push on and win. And you could have done. There's chances where you could have gone 2-0 up, wasn't there? And maybe even more. We weathered the storm and then came back at you. But to me, it's just completely unnecessary. But he was doing that as the players were coming off the pitch at the home leg, and I thought, I wouldn't like that from my own manager. Never mind the opposition manager. So.
Yeah, but he also repeated exactly the same thing of leaving Earnshaw out the first leg against Swansea. So, yeah. And we lost that one as well. So, I mean, the whole thing was totally ruined by Billy Davies himself. Yeah. Anyway, enough said on the Poison Dwarf. We don't like him after he came back.
Can imagine.
With his unfinished business. So, Tim, the score prediction for tomorrow, Saturday.
I'm going to go. I never like to predict my own team to win anyway. I'm going to go 1 each. I think we might go 1-0 up. But I think you'll come back. And if anybody wins it, and this isn't me just saying it, if anybody wins the game, I think it's more likely to be you than us. And when I say that, it's because we haven't, the biggest miss for us is Maxwell. We've got, and I'm no disrespect to his replacement. I suspect it'd be Stuart Moore, who actually did really well when he came on against Blackburn and pulled off a fantastic save at the end of the game. But I think we'll miss his experience, and I think we'll miss his leadership. And, if we've also lost Keogh and, we've got Lavery missing at the other end, I think Lavery is slightly easier to replace than Maxwell is where I'm at. And that's where I think our Achilles heel possibly is.
Well, I'm going to be consistent across all preview videos I've recorded and go 3-2 Forest.
Right.
Purely for the fact I think it's going to be an absolute open game. It's going to be one of those crazy championship games which Forest haven't been involved in for quite some time. The City Ground hasn't quite seen goals for a while, so why not start with Blackpool?
Yeah, well, hopefully we will. I'm coming down. We've got a coach going from the town I live in, and so we're setting off about 9:30 in the morning. Stop off on the way, and then so I want to come down and be entertained. So hopefully, as I said, we're probably I think from Blackpool's perspective, this year is very much a consolidation year at best. I think if we finish 18th or 19th, then it's job done as far as we're concerned. I'd like to think we'll do a bit better, and I think we've shown in the last few games we've got the ability to do a bit better. I mean, we went to Bournemouth as well and drew 2-2, and to be honest, we could have won. We were 2-0 down, came back, and we could have won that game as well. So, I think teams, and probably this is going to benefit us this year. I think teams will always underestimate us. They'll think Blackpool is the 3 points that they should be getting, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but there's plenty of teams that are going to come unstuck with that type of attitude with us. I think at the moment, of the 3 teams that got promoted, we're the highest sitting, and I think we'll be the highest sitting team at the end of the season as well. So where that is, hopefully it's above the relegation line. I'm fairly confident it will be, to be honest. And and then hopefully we can, we've got new owners. We got rid of our bad owners about 2 years ago. We've got a Blackpool fan, not one who pretended to be a Blackpool fan, now owning the club, and he's making great strides. He's investing in the stadium, which hopefully is going to be improved in the next few years, and he's investing in the team, and he's got, they've got a project going on with Critchley, and Critchley's proving to be, what I think is going to be a great manager. Hopefully, he's going to stay with us in the long term. And he's got a good team around him, and there's a bit of a good buzz at Blackpool. I mean, at the home, I mean, in the atmosphere. Hopefully, we've got about 2,000 or 3,000 coming on Saturday. We really get behind the side. Hopefully, you'll see that, and when you come to our ground, you'll see that we're not as big as the City ground, but we make plenty of noise, and it's probably one of the most partisan atmospheres in the division. I think. I know Tony Mowbray commented about it after the Blackburn game that he was quite surprised how much noise was created around the stadium, and he could see why that was transferring into results, because it is quite intimidating.
I mean, we probably don't make as much noise now as we did in the playoff game. I mean, I've been heavily critical of a couple of our stands and their lack of atmosphere, but the stand where the away fans are and half of the home fans take the other half of the stand now, we make noise. So it could be quite interesting if it is a fairly open game, how the different sections of the crowd deal with the goals.
We'll make noise whether we're winning, losing, drawing, and I know Middlesbrough went up at 1-0 against us the other week at the Riverside. We made more noise when they scored than they did, and it was because I think it's partly because of where we've come from, because we've had to boycott for 4 or 5 years and not gone to games, and so it's almost like it's a new toy for us, because again, as soon as we just got back in the ground after, again, if any of your listeners don't know, we most of us didn't go to a game at home between 2014 and 2019, 5 long years, and that was very, very hard for a lot of people. But then we just get back in, and then COVID strikes. We'd only been back in 6 months or something like that. So we've had 12 months then of not going to games, and so there is almost like it is like a kid with a new toy, and we've got a lot of fans. There's a great fans group, a great fantastic atmosphere behind the goal. We've got like a supporters club. They built a supporters club just behind the ground as well. And we've got sort of like real momentum, and there is a lot of, there's a lot of vocal support comes with that, and I hope that carries on. I hope it continues. But it is I think born out of where we've come from a little bit. So we'll give it a good go on Saturday anyway, and we'll try and make sure that we create a bit of an atmosphere, as and the home fans generally feed off it as well, which is great, isn't it? Because if the away fans are giving it plenty, then it generally stirs the home fans into life if they're a bit quieter than normal. So we'll enjoy it.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim, for coming on. I appreciate it.
No problem. And being the best team wins Saturday, eh?
Indeed. All right. On that note, until next time on Talk Forest TV, goodbye.